Making your first million is really hard. But once you make your first $1 million, the second million is inevitable.
Right.
It's like, now it will happen.
Well, a very warm welcome to the Goldmine Show. As always, we are excited just to bring this show to you. We want to keep reminding you that there is greatness on the inside of you, and the one thing you never want to stop doing is bringing it out, man, because you've got to keep nurturing it. You've got to be intentional. You can quit on you when you are so loaded, when you are so endowed. You've got to keep at it, my friend, until you bring out all of this greatness. It's exactly the reason why we do this show, just to keep reminding you that there is greatness on the inside of you. Well, I want to invite you to follow us on the Goldmine Show on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and everywhere else. And let's keep building a great Goldmine community that believes and works on the greatness inside of every single one of us, man. Well, today I'm excited. I'm excited, man, because our guest is an amazing friend of mine, man. I look up to him on many fronts, my friend, and I must just let it out. He was once my schoolmate, and sometimes I look at him and I wonder what happened to me. But well, we keep going. All the way from Johannesburg, man. This man is from Baringo, found love in Runyanjas, and decided to settle all the way in Johannesburg. Glad he's in town, man. None other than my good friend, Casey.
No. Thank you.
Asante, man.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, you're a big fan, eh?
Yeah, thank you.
All the way from Joburg, you watch it?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
Especially on Facebook.
Fantastic.
I always watch it.
Fantastic.
I always follow you, man. I'm your stalker.
Man, Asante, man.
You know, social media has those algorithms.
Yep.
If you keep liking someone's stuff,
Right.
say, okay, so you're serious about following this guy.
Yep.
Then every time you do something, notification comes through.
Right.
I'm done.
Well, you can be sure that the reverse also does happen.
Okay, thank
Been
you.
following yours as well, man.
Asante.
I've been following yours as well.
Shukran.
And it's really such an honor to host you here. We've talked about this before,
Yeah,
and I'm
we
really
have.
glad that finally,
We've
man,
been planning it for
we've been planning for a while.
Just
schedules like this.
Exactly.
But I'm really glad that you're here, man.
Thank you.
Can you be your money?
Asante.
It's good to see you, my brother.
I love being home.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yani, after how many years of being college mates back in the...
We were trying, before we started, we were trying to count. So 99, 2000, we are giving away our
We have
age.
given it too much, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So do the math.
Well, it's been a couple of years. It's been many years.
I Torokad in 2001.
Right.
So, so
Yeah.
I've been away for a long time. But although, of course, I keep coming back.
Yeah, you keep coming back, man. You've not forgotten Mbani.
No.
Yeah?
East or West.
Home is best, man. Home is best, man. Man, I'm number one. You're an embodiment of many things.
I think, look, we only have the one life, right, on this earth. So I think you have to maximize.
Absolutely.
So that's what we are trying to do before it's before you're too old. Time to retire and you can't get up and about.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've been pretty busy, man. Since then, you've been doing quite a number of things.
Yeah. You can call me a bit confused, because I did accounting and realized it's not my thing. Well, auditing is not my thing. I still do accounting.
Right.
Still run a firm actually in South Africa called
Right.
Financial Minds. It's a consulting company, but it also has a publication. Yeah, but other than that, I'm also a writer. I'm an events organizer. Those are things that I really enjoy doing. So yeah, I'm also in that space.
Yep.
Become an author in the recent past.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so the KC I knew then was an IT student.
Yeah. I miss.
Doing IMIS.
Yeah.
Next time I'm seeing you offering.
Yeah.
Doing accounting. At some point we did banking together as well.
Exactly. I also did banking.
And I'm like, man, then I hear accounting, then I hear journalism, and then I hear, man, I'm like, what are you chasing, man?
You know, when we were together at KSMS,
Yes.
I was doing many things.
Right.
Like I was doing IMIS.
Right.
I was doing banking, which you are also doing.
Right.
And then at night, some nights I used to run away to Alliance Francaise to do French.
Right.
That's when I went to SA. I went to SA, the guys there were like, oh, no, here you have to go back and do high school for 1 year. We're not accepting KCSE. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I shopped around, got into a marketing course. While in the marketing course, the accounting lecturer convinced me to switch to accounting. And the rest, as they say.
Dude, so you became the wakili that never became?
When COVID happened, is when I started writing books, because now we're in lockdown.
Right.
In Joburg, we had proper lockdown,
where
you can't leave the house.
Yep.
You can only leave the house to go to the shops, for groceries.
Right.
So I was like, what am I going to do? You know, of course, you hang out with the family, but you know, there's not much work to do. So I was like, actually, I've always wanted to write a book. Why not now? And then that's when I became an author. And now, you know, 3 books later, here I am.
Then you did your accounting now.
I did accounting.
After the lecturer convinced you all the way.
Yeah, no, well, actually, it was for economic reasons, you can call it that, because but I enjoy the branch of accounting that I'm doing. But she was saying, look, you're from Kenya. Do you like South Africa? I said, I do. But why are you doing marketing? Like, marketing here, we've got so many marketers.
Right.
But the one thing this economy needs is accountants.
Right.
So if you qualify as an accountant here, you'll have, you know, employers falling over you.
Right.
Yeah, so it was, you can call it as being an economic migrant.
Right.
Like, okay, cool, let me just do accounting. And I was actually quite good at it.
Right.
Surprisingly, despite not loving, you know, maths in school and even the modules that we did in IMIS and banking, which had some accounting.
Right.
I wasn't too crazy about that.
Right.
But I mean, put my head down and I got a niche in that accounting space. When I qualified as a chartered accountant, it wasn't auditing. So I worked as an auditor, even became an audit partner, but I hated it.
Right.
I was actually just doing it for the money. So when I took off, now I focused more on the branch of accounting called IFRS, which I enjoy.
Which is more about reporting.
Yeah, it's more about reporting, financial reporting.
Financial reporting, yes.
It's also, you can call it a bit of the legal side of accounting, because we've got these standards that we must comply with. And we read through that and make sure that the accounting follows that law. Right. So yeah, so maybe you can say the law part is still
it's still alive. It's in application though.
It's in application.
It's in application.
Way.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Correct,
right. Yeah. And it must have become then the big thing, because then I guess that's now what you're consulting on.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. I have my consultancy is based on IFRS. So what we basically do is an entity will do a transaction. So there'll be a merger, for example, between 2 banks. Right. Talking about that off air. So they'd be asking themselves the questions about, you know, how are assets going to be brought in together? Do they come together at fair value? Do they come together at the book value that's there on the books? You know, are there, you know, the intangible assets that have arisen out of this that we need to impair? So for example, maybe you had a brand and that brand is no longer in use. Right. Once you merge, how do you account for that afterwards? Correct. So those are the aspects that I deal with.
Right, right. So you do a lot more beyond the mergers and acquisitions and all of that stuff. Is there any other spaces?
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, mergers and acquisitions, that's business combinations. Right. If there's share options that directors are being given, how do you value the share option? Right. If it's mining is a big space. Right now we've got in your space IFRS 9 financial instruments in banking, lots of you know, models that have to be built to account for, you know, loans and so on. Insurance companies are going through a crazy time now with changing their accounting using IFRS 17. So that's the work that the space where my mind is, which I find quite interesting because it keeps evolving, right? Right. Yeah. So
and you're commanding the space all the way.
Yeah, trying to put my so they in Johannesburg they have something called accreditation by the stock exchange. So not many people get that accreditation. They have to see that you've put in the right number of hours to get that accreditation where you can be able to give advice to these listed entities. Right. Yeah. So once I got that qualification in 2019.
Well done.
Yeah. So being counted amongst the few has been very beneficial for my accounting career. Right. Because I have an accounting career and then I've got the literal career. Right. Yeah. Because as I said, life is too short.
Absolutely. I hope you buy that lecturer some lunch.
Which the guy who told me.
you tell?
Yeah, the lady, she's called Astrid Amatas.
Right.
Yeah, I am always, I mean, she's a good social media connect of mine.
Right.
Yeah, so from time to time, whenever there's an achievement of some sort, I tag her. You know, and yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was invaluable advice. I mean, it has worked pretty well.
Yeah, it has worked out well.
Right.
Taken me to many spaces.
Right.
Yeah, taken me to other parts of the world, not just South Africa. Worked in Australia for some months, worked in Boston for some months, been to the UK for some stints, and parts of Africa. We're talking about DRC.
Right.
Spent 6 months there at a mine at some point. Yeah. So it's been good.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And shortly we'll come to the scholarly work that you have very well done. but just before that, I mean, part of the reason why we do the Goldmine show sometimes is exactly the conundrum you faced at some point, figuring out, am I this, finding direction and finding course and asking myself. And there are many folks in there and just asking themselves, what should that course be and what that sale becomes. Of course, for you found a settlement, but before the settlement, there's really a long journey there. And just want to dig a bit into that and your thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a bit of a challenge in Africa still, where we actually, we steer people to pursue careers based on, I don't know how you ended up in banking, but like for us, we finished around the same time high school. And it was like the A students were all told you must do medicine and engineering.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for you clever guys, right? And in fact, I was being told that, you should do pharmacy.
Right.
And I'm like, pharmacy, dispensing drugs. I was like, no, that is not. Then they say, okay, fine, if you're a B+, you should do law.
Right.
If you're B, you should now do the arts. So what kind of way is it to give people career guidance? So it's really sad. So my thoughts on that is, of course, there's only a few people who know what they want to do.
Right.
There's a few guys who will tell you, ever since I was a kid, when someone falls in the playground, I was that one getting the elastoplast.
Right.
So I've always known I want to be a doctor.
Right.
Very few guys know that.
Right.
I think for the rest of us, I think we need some good guidance on that. And I think there's a few clues. One of them is, what are you passionate about?
Right.
Right? What are you really passionate about?
And you can imagine the medicine we're talking about, it has nothing to do with whether it's a passion or not. It was just grade-based.
It's grade-based.
I scored an A, so I'm sharp.
Clever guys do medicine. Right. You should do medicine because you're clever. Whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
Whether you hate the sight of blood or not, you should do it. So anyway, I think people need to.
And even the admission in the university is exactly that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they don't even check at university whether or not you're passionate.
Right.
Yeah, about what you're doing.
Correct.
So for me, passion is one.
Right.
Two, talents. Right. Because if you have a certain talent, right? I mean, look at you. They know, right? If you told me that you want to be running a TV show, everyone would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Because you and I, when we're in KSMS, you're the guy who used to stand in front there and speak, and guys are quiet and they listen. Right? So I would say, that makes sense to them.
Looks like him.
Exactly.
Right.
He was born for something along those lines. So that's very. And then, of course, I think people need to evolve because our universities are teaching things that people are not going to apply. We are talking about AI just now, for example. I mean, why are guys in school, even the guys in computing, they are learning programs that when they get into the workplace might be outdated.
Right.
So that's another thing. Like, you need to be futuristic, I think, in terms of the careers that people end up selecting.
And I think it's a tough place because I do not know that the education system is factoring all of these things in. I don't know whether we're having those kind of conversations. It is possible that a guy is just burning money in college today and in campus for gaining a skill that may not be relevant 5 years from the day they graduate.
That is so true. And you see, the problem is maybe it's too expensive to then be futuristic. Right. Because first of all, the teachers. If we went today to Chiromo campus and told all the teachers they must teach AI, maybe they've not learnt AI so that they can teach it. Plus the syllabus, the materials are not there, the books are not there. So maybe it's also a cost perspective, which is not to shoot it down because some of the skills that we learn in college, I know I've met so many people Like right now, I'm dealing with CFOs in East Africa. Not all of them are accountants. And I ask, how is it that someone says, no, I'm a marketer, but I'm the CFO. I'm like, how? How?
Right.
But they say, you know what? There's a certain aptitude you get when you're getting a degree that prepares you to go into multiple spaces.
Right.
That's one.
Right.
Secondly, if you've developed that muscle of learning and you're eager to learn, you learn.
Right.
So you go and you ask your finance person, hey, tell me, I'm reading this balance sheet.
Yep.
I'm trying to understand equity ratio. Tell me, what does this mean? And you pick it up.
Which shows interest at that point. By the time I'm asking that question, it's an interesting question.
Exactly. So if you have that interest, that curiosity, you can be able to fill many different roles.
Correct.
So, so it's not to shoot down university. Of course, it can be better. But of course, our degrees do have some value in developing that muscle and that aptitude. So that when you go into the workplace, you may not apply many of the things that you're doing, but you'll be able to. I mean, how many guys went and studied like at Upper Kabete campus agriculture, and if you meet many of those guys, they are not working in the agricultural space. They're doing other
that's
things,
starting to become very common. You hear a guy who tells you, I studied as an architect, but I'm doing something completely different.
Actuaries.
In fact, not related.
An actuary, you're like, why aren't you working at an insurance company? So I think also people must not, you shouldn't pigeonhole yourself. To say that this is what I studied. This is where my life has to be, and I can't branch out and do other things. You can. You really can, if you're determined to do. And as you're saying, if you really have that interest and you're willing to learn, I think you can do it. You can even unlearn and learn.
Which happens every day.
Unlearning, relearning, and learning.
Right. And well, then I guess there's some hope there, because then it means that if I pick the aptitudes during whichever the program I learn, then I could pivot any direction. I could pivot as long as I have the interest and the curiosity, the passions, discovering your talents at etc.
And the adaptability, right? Because you must be adaptable. And you know, like, times are tough. I mean, times in Kenya are tough, for example. So adaptability is such an important thing. Because if you don't show adaptability, if you have to change your roles, for example, companies are restructuring all the time. And the guys they get rid of are the guys who are like, dude, this guy is such a specialist in one thing. We really know we can't shift him to do that thing. He's like so
fixated.
So you can't be fixated. Be adaptable. You know, as they say, attitude determines altitude. So I've met many people who say, for example, they hire people based on attitude. Because say I'm hiring bank tellers, how many people have studied banking? When you get those CVs, there's only a few, I mean, they all have passed. So what are the distinguishing factors? That's why they do interviews. And then they speak to you and then they say, okay, this guy has attitude. Kuna kasoro mahali.
It's not coming through.
It's not coming through. Let's go with this guy. So those are the things. Plus also, many people have the IQ, but do you have the EQ? Right? The distinguishing factor is those professional skills. Right? Those things that come through, like, are you a team player, for example? So those are the things that are going to distinguish and, you know, help you. Take off.
I guess when we're growing up, attitude was an amorphous thing. But I think the more we proceed, then we realize it's actually a tangible thing.
It is a tangible thing. You actually think that it's just a word. You know, companies have these things that they put as words in their brochures, and even you come to the reception and it's plastered there. But is it really being practiced? So things like attitude. You know, if I'll give you an example. I'm dealing with we've just opened up a company in Kenya, and we are trying to open a bank account, and that bank is taking us through, like, I don't know. Like, they want us. In fact, I was commenting, these guys, I'm surprised they haven't asked us for a blood test. And I don't want a DNA sample. Because it was like ridiculous. And then they're looking at the checklist, but not applying their minds, right? Not applying their minds, right? You know, to say, okay, one of the things is that we must do a site visit. You're a brand new company. What site do you want to visit? Right? So they're not applying their minds. That's one thing. When you go and you look at the culture and the mission statement of that bank, the things they talk about, you know, customer service, going above and beyond, blah, blah, blah. You're like, this is what you say you are. But what I'm experiencing with you
is a different
totally
experience.
Totally different experience.
So we're not able to translate the thing on the wall to what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. You know, it's that feeling that someone gets. You know, few things I remember from my marketing is that brand is associated with feeling. Right. So when you think about, I don't know, Coke, you get a certain feeling. Maybe a feeling of refreshment. That is the brand. Adidas. You get a sense of, you know, quality, you know, style. You get athleticism. It's a sense, it's a feeling. That is the brand. Correct. So also as an individual, what is your brand? When I hear Dennis Njao, how do I feel? Do I feel like there's delivery coming through here? Do I feel like reliability is coming through? Or do I feel like there's some dodginess that might happen? So even as an individual, you have a brand.
You indeed should run like a brand.
You should run.
Correct. In fact, at some point, a friend of mine talked about, if you're a limited liability company, ask KC, how would you want to run your business? Because indeed, you're one.
Exactly.
You're one.
You are. And remember, every day you go out there selling yourself. And your success is pegged on how well you sell yourself. Again, selling yourself is dependent on many things. Maybe also your communication skills, what it is you offer, your experience, but also it's that brand, that attitude. You know, so what is your brand? What is the feeling that people get from interacting with you, you know, in personal and professional spaces?
Right, man. And you know, talking about brand, man, you have evolved to become an amazing brand.
I'm humble. You're far too kind.
You've just evolved to become this incredible brand, and really, and I want us to speak about it even in the context of the works that you have done, and you took us to COVID, becoming an author and studying. Walk us through that journey as we then shortly get into some of the stuff you've done.
Okay, my literary works. So how this started was. Look, when around 2009, 2010, I'm sure you saw, we had xenophobia in South Africa.
Yes.
And there was always this problem that I encountered even when I was at university and within my career, where you could find that people have a negative perception of Africans from other parts of Africa. So what I did is I launched a magazine actually called the Expatriate Magazine, and it was deliberate because every cover had a black guy under the term expatriate. When you hear about expatriate, you're thinking of some Dutch guy who's come or some guy who's come from Sweden. That's an expatriate, or the people who work at United Nations and so on. But I was saying these are expatriates. They are professionals from outside South Africa. And here are their stories. So I used to tell their stories. These are the businesses that these guys are running. These are the charitable organizations they are supporting. Here is a guy who employs 100 South Africans. He's from Zimbabwe, he's from Nigeria, he's a Kenyan. Right? So that was the genesis of my writing career. So I ran Expatriate Magazine for about 5 years. Then I changed the name to The African Professional because you'd find that there was so much interplay. Some people, you're calling them expatriates, but these guys are South African who's been in Tanzania or Zambia with the ANC those days and has come back. So there was a lot of that. So I called it African Professional. Ran that for a number of years up until COVID happened, as I said.
But as you're setting the expatriate, you're trying to address this xenophobia issue.
Exactly. Change the perception. Change the perception, and then, of course, there's this thing that has been there in South Africa, where if you are an achiever but you're not South African, the media don't really give you that spotlight. So that was also an issue. It's like, who's spotlighting the amazing things that these guys are doing, right? So I was like, also, one, change perception.
The story needs to be told.
Two, your story needs to be told, and I'm going to do that. I mean, if I as an expatriate myself can't do it, who's going to do it? Correct.
And you feel that pain yourself because you're one of those expatriates
exactly
yourself.
I was one of those. Exactly. I am one of those.
And you're making your contribution every day.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to tell your story.
I am. I employ South Africans. I contribute to the economy. a taxpayer. I mean, many of the things that I do are beneficial to South Africa and to South Africans. Yeah, so when COVID came...
And that courage is laudable, because sometimes we complain about things we could do something about, but we hesitate, and we keep hoping someone is going to do something about it.
I'm telling you, it's called, what's this called? The armchair general.
Armchair general.
Lots of armchair generals. People who sit around the Nyamachoma place of South Africa, they call it the braai.
Right.
And they sit there and they just moan about the state of things.
Right.
But what are you
and recite the problem.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So don't look at the problem. Tell me what is the opportunity that is there in the problem.
Right.
So there was definitely an opportunity.
Right.
There was a gap.
Right.
So you're looking, and this is just an example. There's many people who are watching this who I would tell.
Right.
In your space, you're seeing that there's a gap. What are you doing to fill that gap? One, it's an opportunity for you.
Right.
Two, if you're it's a contributor. You need to contribute. You need to be a good corporate, or good social citizen, right? So it's part
and become part of the solution.
And become part of the solution, not just moan about the problem.
Right.
So that's why I started running that publication. Of course, it went into headwinds with COVID. Printed publication. Where is it being distributed?
Right.
You can't distribute. Long term, we had a long-term lockdown, right? So advertisers were, of course we had a digital platform, which was well consumed.
Right.
But there's still some advertisers who are really old school, who prefer, and they were also going through financial.
Right.
Everything stops.
Right. Everything slowed down, actually.
Yeah. Because let's first pay salaries.
Right.
Even salaries became a problem in COVID because people were being sent home.
Right.
Unpaid leave, retrenchments, and those kind of things. And then advertising is one thing that we're definitely not going to be paying. So that really stopped things, and that's when I became an author.
Right.
Because I said, you know what, let me write a book. My mom is a professor of literature, so she's written countless books.
Here in Kenya?
Here in Kenya, she was a prof at University of Nairobi, just actually retired.
Oh, nice.
Literature professor.
Right.
Yeah, written lots of books.
Right.
So I grew up in a home where, the value of a child was how many books they read. So we used to read a lot of Chinua Achebe and all those guys.
The relationship with books comes all the way, man.
Comes all the way, and my dad also was a drama chairman guy.
Right.
My brother was also, we were the guys who were writing plays in high school and so on. So we have that writing thing in the family. Yeah.
It runs in the blood.
It runs in the blood.
Right.
So that's how I ended up writing my first book.
Right.
Called Masters of Money.
Right.
Where I was saying, you know what, let me interview the guys I work with, because the guys I work with the most are CFOs, right? So that's why I ended up writing this Masters of Money book.
Right.
And that was 31 CFOs that I interviewed.
Right.
And it was actually, let me write about them, but let me get some biashara out of it as well.
Correct.
Right? It's a business development tool, because all those 31 guys, I have an intimate relationship with them. So I wrote about them. I can always reach out to them and, get some financial reporting consulting out of them. So it was a business development tool. Surprisingly, I didn't know this. I thought very few people would be interested in reading about CFOs and what they have to share. Lots of people. This book did so well that the publisher, Jonathan Ball in South Africa, asked me to write another book. They said we don't have a proper CEO book in South Africa. Right. And that's when now I got into this second book now.
And we're going to come to the second book, man. When I look at some of the CFOs and organizations you also are interviewing, I just look at a list here. It's your old mutuals. It is your MTN South Africa. It is your First One Bank. Capitec Bank. I see all of these big organizations.
The blue chips.
Yeah, the blue chips. I see the Discovery. These are the medical guys.
Yeah, Discovery is the biggest healthcare company in Africa.
Right, right. And so two things. First and foremost, the caliber, what it takes to become the kind of guy who can sit that thought level. Because this is thought leadership.
Yes.
Largest organizations, the people driving their finances, the people right at the heart of their strategies, the people directing many things. of course you must be of a certain caliber
Yeah.
for them to even have a meaningful conversation.
Engagement with
Right,
you. Yeah.
right.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it helps, but I don't think it's a be-all and end-all.
Right.
Right? So it helps that, I mean, they say your network is your net worth.
Right.
So I had my network.
Right.
But I did a really good job of tapping into my network. Right? So a lot of those people there, I had no relationship with whatsoever.
Right.
And how I went about it is like, LinkedIn, for example, I look and I'm like, oh, I worked with this guy. The guy has left and is working at that company. So I phoned him and I asked him, please, you know what, I'm trying to reach your CFO. You know, can you help?
Connect
Some
me.
people may be like, no, right? But some may. So to get 31 people, you need to go for, actually went for maybe 100, 120.
Right.
Right? But starting with the top. And until someone tells you no, you keep persisting. So
Right.
two things. One, network. Two, persistent space.
And you taught me no means next opportunity.
Exactly. No means next one. Yeah, that's what no means.
I like it.
So when I come to Deno and Deno tells me no, he's actually telling me go to the next one.
Next one, yeah.
Because that's how it works.
It's not the end of the road.
Exactly, it's a statistical thing.
Right.
Out of 10 people,
Right.
maybe 3 of them have the time, because some have the, you know, it's the ability, and the willingness. So some have the willingness but don't have the ability, because there are people who are just too busy, right? If a guy publishing a book has got timelines, and if you're in and out of board meetings, you're covering a region, maybe you're flying in and out of South Africa, you just don't have the time to meet with me. So there's a lot of people who told me yes, but I just couldn't get into their diaries.
Right.
They just had a crazy schedule. In fact, some of them I told them, you know what, let's do this. Every day in the morning, when you are driving to work, please call me. Between home and work, we'll cover one question.
Right.
When you're going home in the evening, call
me again.
Let's cover another question.
Right.
Within 3-4 days, I will have done a full interview.
Right, right.
Because they just didn't have time.
Right.
So yeah, so that's how it worked. And that persistence and using multiple channels, be multi-pronged. Don't say, I'm going to reach people via email, that's my method. There's so many ways to reach people. Back in our day, growing up, our parents, they only reached people via phone calls.
Right.
Phoning the office line or the home line, that was their only way.
And that's all there was.
That's all there was.
Yep.
And whoever picks, if they want to pass the phone to you, then they'll pass it to you.
Right.
Now we've got so many. We've got email.
Right.
We've got social media.
Right.
Go on LinkedIn. Inbox the person.
Right.
See if they don't reply, inbox again.
Right.
Inbox again, maybe.
Right.
And keep it nice, short and sweet and straight to the point. A couple of the people here, in fact, Dineo Molefe, the one you've mentioned of MTN.
Right.
I spoke to her on LinkedIn. She
Right.
never knew who I was. WhatsApp.
And she was responsive.
She was responsive eventually,
Right.
because I persisted.
Right.
Then WhatsApp. Get a guy's number, send him a WhatsApp. Maybe he doesn't look at WhatsApp, send an SMS.
Right.
Doesn't answer, call him.
Right.
Maybe he'll pick up.
Right.
Multi-pronged. Just
One of
always
those
try.
methods will work.
One of those methods
Right.
will work.
Right.
The whole idea of sending an email and hoping the email is responded to is so 1995.
Right.
Yeah.
Outdated completely.
Outdated completely. Yeah. Outdated.
So,
Outdated.
right. So you reach out to all these guys and man, they give you all these different perspectives.
Yes.
And you decide, man, I'm gonna put. So you then put this book together.
Yeah.
And the response must have been absolutely amazing.
No, the response to the book was much better than I expected. Because I thought this will be a book that will be of interest only to people who are in the finance space, right? But there's a lot of people who are not in the finance space who have found the book valuable. So because it's a good business read, I would call it that.
Right.
So it's a business read. Of course, it's got a lot. I asked them a lot of their personal lessons. Some guys gave me amazing stories. There's one of the CFOs there who works for it's one of these big companies that does manufacturing of COVID vaccines.
AstraZeneca?
No, it's not AstraZeneca. That's why I'm confused with it. It will come to me.
Yes.
He's in there. Let me get the guy.
Yeah.
So this guy, he actually he was caught in the typhoon that was there in Japan with him and his wife. It's called Aspen Pharmacare. Aspen. So they were caught in a typhoon in Thailand, right? And the guy was separated from his wife. You know, it's like water. It's like massive amounts of water. Plus the wife was pregnant. So it's talking about that trauma and how that trauma, they both survived and the kid was actually born.
Right.
But the guy was talking about how that trauma impacted his career and how you should, treat every day, how you should value time, and so on. So it was some good lessons, some good heart-to-heart things that it's not just basically a finance person coming and giving a lecture. It was actually some good quality insights that came through from the book.
Right.
Yeah. And then that's why I transitioned me to the next one.
Right. So behind actually the big title is actually a human being.
There is a human being.
It's a humanized
leader. Is a human being. People say, I don't know, there are people who tell me, what I am at work and what I am outside of work are two different. I don't believe in that. I think a person is a person. You're a whole human. When you come to the office and you and your spouse at home have had a massive disagreement, you're on the verge of divorce, you can't shake that off throughout the day. And people who don't know that may think that this person, I went to ask them for something, they didn't smile at me. They're snobbish and so on. A person is a person. We don't have a light switch. We don't have two modes. Some people have it. I've spoken to radio presenters, for example, who say, I'm on the morning show. My dad died last night, and I go on the morning show, and hey,
and you're like, how did you?
Right. Yeah, some people can do that.
Right.
But most of us can't go to the office on the verge of divorce and just smile at everyone. You're the same person. You're going through the same emotions. So, behind all these CFOs, the big titles, the big money, because they are very, very well remunerated, right? And most of them, these are listed companies. Their salaries are available to view. You can see how much money they earn. Behind that, there is a human being. Right. There is a human being. And that's why also they have a story to tell.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I wrote the book.
Right.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wrote the book.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because then I was going to ask, when you hatched the vision to do this, what do you hope to accomplish?
Yeah.
And would you say you accomplished? And those are two questions.
Yeah.
So what did you hope?
So
what is success going to look like?
So for me, the success that I got and the success that I thought was going to look like were two different. I mean, the eventual success far surpassed what I thought was success for me. Because I thought I'll interview 10 CFOs, put together a small book about them, print it myself, and maybe I'll sell like 100 copies of the book, right? I got, using my network again, I sent the transcript to, not transcript, but the manuscript to a publisher, introduced by another author. And the publisher loved it, right? And the publisher worked with me and told me, listen, first of all, 10 is small, triple that number. Let's start there, right? Secondly, I was going to call this book
So triple the number of interviewees.
Right. Make it big, go big. And don't, in fact with the 10 I was going to just do, for each of them 800 to 1,000 words. I said no. A book, just go. All out.
Right.
So on average 2,000, 2,500 words in depth. When people want a magazine, they want quick, short and sweet. Online also short and sweet, right? But when it comes to a book, they want in-depth.
Right.
Book readers read.
Right.
So that's why I went in-depth with that book. Right. Then, like the book Masters of Money, wonderful title. It just sells. Who doesn't love money? Right. Initially, I wanted to call it Essay Financial Leaders, and they said no one's gonna buy a book that's called that. It's something interesting.
Right.
So yeah. So eventually, my initial success, which I thought I'll self-print, self-distribute, right? For a few, written about few people, distributed to a few, was totally different.
Right.
Yeah. So it basically ended up being a big a much bigger thing that came out of it, because thousands and thousands of copies sold in SA, even in Kenya.
Right.
I remember in Kenya, in a few weeks' time, I published a list on my social media. Here are the first 100 people who bought my book in Kenya, you know, and then it just spiraled from there.
Right.
Yeah. So success. I mean, and then after that, the publisher came to me that even better deal, saying, I need you to write now a book about CEOs. You know, we're gonna even, you know, change the rates, give you a bigger advance and all that. And you know, they pushed the book. It has an audio version as well, so it's on Audible and so on, done by a professional artist and so on. So success just went from there. It just spiraled up. Yeah.
My final question on this one before I go to the next one, man.
Yeah.
What are the two most critical questions you wanted the CFOs to answer that therefore you have covered as part of the content of this without giving the book too much away?
Yeah, okay, well, a couple of things. One, how do you get to where you are? Because a lot of the readers are aspirational. They want to know, how do I become a CFO, right? How do you get to where you are? Then secondly, what is your life like? And, you know, so what is the life of a CFO? Really tell us what the life of a CFO is. Because if you think about all the companies that you know, even here in Kenya, we know the CEO. But if I was to ask you who the CFO is, you may not know.
Sometimes you may not, yes.
I mean, the guy, you know, for your viewers who are watching, if I ask them CFO of Safaricom, they'll shout it. Who's the CFO? Maybe one or two will know, but no.
Because most CEOs are out there. They're the faces of the company.
Are the faces of the company.
They're the faces of the
company. So I wanted to go to the guys who are in the back room, the guys in the engine room, making it happen. But actually, in fact, in most companies, the CFOs are running the company, while the CEO is out there, you know, looking for business and being the face and, you know, presenting the company. So that's another thing that I wanted to get out of. Let's go to this guy who's in the back, you know, because it's like here. We're at a restaurant, we could eat here and you're like, wonderful food and so on. And the person who served us will engage and explain to us how the food is. And we'll take all the accolades, the tip will go to the person who served. But this was actually to guys, I want to go behind there to the kitchen.
I want to meet the chef.
I want to meet that guy. Ask him, boss,
how did you do this?
Hey, this thing of yours was tasty. That was the reason. That's what I wanted.
And so anybody who gets a copy of this gets to hear some of the stories of what it took for them to become what their journey was like, what their typical day is like. So you humanize them as well.
Humanizing the CFO.
Fantastic. By the way, that story of humanizing, I think it's an important one, man. I think there are many leaders who are either collapsing with him because then you're also becoming a macho man superhero. And also, the people that follow you do not know how to deal with you at a human level. And I guess it's about time we humanize leadership.
It is.
Leaders also go through real life stuff, man.
They do. I mean, they go through the exact same stuff that we go through. They go through sickness, they go through bereavement, they go through depression, because there are times that you're down. They are really, and in fact, maybe the magnitude, the potential for them to have mental health challenges are bigger than some of us. Because for me, maybe when I'm thinking about my problems, I'm only thinking about my family. Financial problems, my family. Time away from home, my family, and so on. For them, the impact of their decisions is widespread, It's widespread. Like when you're signing that check, to buy a new business, you need to think about, you know, this is a gamble. If this thing doesn't work, 1,000 people are going to be out of jobs. So how big is that? How heavy does that weigh on?
And those are families impacted.
Those are families impacted. And people you know. Like maybe you also convinced someone to leave a company to come join your company. And then you go and make this gamble, which may result in them, after having given them all these grand promises, may result in them being out of a job. After having convinced them. You may have to fire people. Like, you know that thing of firing, I think it's easy to fire a guy who deserves to be fired. If you catch a guy stealing, but you have to fire people just because in fact, you're firing people because of a consequence of your own mistakes. You know that happens in companies. People are being let go because of the mistakes of the leadership. So,
and it's the same leadership letting them go.
Exactly. right? I did absolutely nothing wrong.
Yep.
But because you made mistakes.
I've been doing what I was asked to do.
Exactly. But because you made mistakes, now I'm out of a job. Plus, I know you. I've dined with you and your wife. I know your kids. You came to me the other time to tell me how, thank you very much. You know, my kid has just finished primary. He's been called to Alliance, you know, and how excited he was to go there.
Right.
And now you're telling the person, by the way, your kid is not going to go to that Alliance you guys were excited about. So leaders go through some tough things.
It's a tough one.
They are human beings.
Right.
And I think maybe we just focus too much on the numbers.
Right.
And the power and the accolades.
Right.
To say, oh, look at you.
And the former part of them.
Correct.
Right.
Right. I mean, I wish I was that guy. And the car that he's driving.
Right.
And think, no, this guy is living the life. I wish I was him. But be careful what you wish for, which is what the books is actually bringing out.
Right. Well, man, folks, we're not going to give it all out, but I mean, grab your own copy. I'm sure Nuria has them.
Yeah, it's at Nuria.
It's also on Amazon.
Yeah, it's also on Amazon.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
There you go, man.
No excuse. You can
there's absolutely no excuse. It's called Masters of Money by KC. It's giving a bit of it away, but man, you've got to get your own copy, man, and read the balance of it. And all the bits that you like, man, what's up, man? Let him know, man. This really impacted my life and so on and so forth. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Man, KC, do you know we are doing this interview because of the CEO X Factor?
The CEO X Factor.
So which we have not even got into, man.
Yeah, we haven't.
We've had to get somewhere closer. Yeah. Let's see whether we're able to talk about it.
Let's try. Let's try.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So this became the second book.
This is the second book,
right.
And this
the
one
CEO
now.
X Factor.
You know what's interesting about CEO X Factor? They reprinted this book after the first batch.
The Masters of Money.
Masters of Money.
Right.
You know, when it's a really big deal for an author to get a book reprinted.
Right.
It's a big deal for an author to be reprinted because what happens in the publishing game is that a publisher will say, I'm publishing, let's say they say I'm publishing 2,000 copies.
Right.
That is, they're saying this is the minimum I want to sell.
Right.
And if they don't sell 2,000, the book is a flop. In fact, they don't make
anything out of it.
They don't make a profit out of it. Yeah. And in fact, they'll never call you back because they're like, that guy, we took a gamble on him, the book didn't sell. So great thing Masters of Money got reprinted. CEO X Factor. CEO X Factor. This book was launched in June last year.
2023.
2023.
Right.
So we are in Feb.
Right.
So it's done 7-8 months. It's been reprinted twice. Already. So this book surpassed this book within like
in a couple of months.
2 months.
Right. Was gone. Reprinted. Now we're there. You know, there's a particular book order that we are expecting from a corporate, which then will force another reprint within the first third reprint, and so on. So the number of times you reprint a book is how, you know, a book then you basically then now say that book was, you know, a great success. Right.
Yeah. So CEO X Factor has done.
Walk me into the thinking of this book, man. Let's go through the journey of this book.
Okay. So after Masters of Money,
right,
the publisher asked me to write CEO X Factor. Of course, it wasn't called CEO X Factor. We came up with that afterwards. But what I did is the mistakes that I made in writing Masters of Money, I learned from my mistakes, because when you do something the first time, when you do it the second time, it has to be better. One, it's easier. Two, it's better. We talked about it. It's there in the forward, one of my favorite quotes.
I like it, man.
From Brian Tracy.
Yep.
Which says, making your first $1 million is really hard.
Yep.
But once you make your first $1 million, the second $1 million is inevitable.
Right.
It's like, now it will happen. It's because the person that you become in making the first $1 million just makes it easier to. So writing the first book, I told you.
Let me tell you, because I mean, we could get stuck right on that point.
Just one
point. The person you become.
The person you become.
In making that.
In making that.
You know, sometimes we go through motions and possibly miss the opportunity to become.
Yeah.
I think I needed to build a bit more on that. The person you become.
Person
because
you
guess therein lies a lot of what it takes.
Exactly.
Yeah,